Welcome everyone, a brand new F1 season is about to begin, so let's not waste any time and get straight into my 2025 predictions. So my first driver prediction in P20 is the unfortunate Jack Doohan. Yes, the reason why this man is in P20 is primarily nothing to do with his ability. It's the fact that this man is already been set up to foul in F1. We've mentioned it previously, you don't sign Franco Colapinto on a 5-year contract and bring in one of his major sponsors from Argentina if you're not looking to promote him into that top seat. You don't do that for a reserve driver. So unfortunately for Jack, it does seem like the rumours will most likely be true, that he's only going to have 5-6 races. Some are saying he's going to be lucky to even get that. And well, Alpine are also a team that I don't have as much faith in. I know they finished 2024 well, but this is at the time by when everyone else has kind of stopped developing on that season's car. And Gasly put in some great performances, and I just don't see Doohan being on the same level as Gasly. I do rate Gasly quite highly as a driver. He's very experienced, and well, Doohan, I think purely because he's not going to score any points in those minimum amounts of races he's going to be competing in this year, and because of, yes, the lack of races, he will finish down in P20. It's a real shame. He's a rookie. I like to see rookies on the grid. We've got a few this year, and it's a real shame that Colapinto, as glad as it seems that he's going to be on the grid, and as glad as I am that will happen for this year, I don't like that it's going to be at the expense of another rookie. But hopefully Jack will prove us all wrong, and he'll score plenty points and prove that he does deserve an opportunity in F1, but it might just not be for a very long time this year. In P19 and P18 are the two stake F1 drivers in Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg. Bortoleto, I think most people expect to be beaten by his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, and that's what I've gone for as well. But you may be thinking, why is Hülkenberg, or the back-to-back F3 and F2 champion, not higher up in these standings or these predictions? Well, the reason for that is nothing to do with their ability. We know perfectly well what Nico Hülkenberg can do, and yes, I don't think you win back-to-back F3 and F2 titles without being a pretty adaptable driver. The last driver to do that was Oscar Piastri, and look where he is now. But unlike Oscar Piastri, Bortoleto is not joining a team that is at the top end of the midfield, which is where McLaren were at the time. Actually, he decided to leave that team and leave that contract. Of course, their seats are pretty much wrapped up in the form of Norris and Piastri for who knows how long for. So the most important thing for Bortoleto is to find himself on the grid, even if it is going to be in a car and a team that is at the back of the grid this year. And that is my prediction. And what's my reason for that? Well, Stake F1 are about to become Audi in 2026. Why would Sauber spend any sort of money this season with a new ownership incumbent? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yes, they made a little bit of progression at the end of last season over the midfield, but by then the teams around them had stopped developing and stopped bringing new parts to their cars, focusing on this season. And I just think it's going to be a season for Bortoleto and Hülkenberg to forget and just want to get over with pretty quickly, so that they can focus on being Audi and have more money and development put into a new set of regulations. So yeah, that's why I think they're going to be 19th and 18th. Nothing to do with skill or ability, purely just because I think the car's going to be pretty poor. In P17, we have Isaac Hadjar, and well, I think Hadjar, it could be a difficult season for Hadjar. The reason why is, if anyone's watched F2, he's very hot-headed. If you think Yuki Tsunoda has a potty mouth, wait till you listen to this guy. Maybe he'll rein it in because he's in F1, and that may be the case in the first few races, but I think once he gets into the swing of things and things aren't going his way, I think, yeah, it could be a real problem. Least of all for his bank balance, if MBS has anything to say about it. But yes, while he has in the past, just missing out on the F2 Championship last season, used that anger to his advantage, I don't know. I think the V-Carb car is going to be not be great again this season. I don't see anything from last year to go wow about in regards to any of their performances. Yuki in Brazil, but that's primarily due to his skill in the conditions and not necessarily the performance of the car. There will be races and tracks, no doubt, where the car will be better than its midfield competitors, but I've got a feeling it's going to be a tough season for him, and I think the pressure could very much build, especially with Red Bull keeping a very close eye on Arvid Lindblad, and I think we should all be keeping a very close eye on him. He is being promoted to F2 for next season. He is very highly rated. Almost rumours are that he's as highly rated as Max Verstappen was when he was coming through the junior ranks as well. So British-Swedish lad, so keep an eye out for that name. And well, yeah, Hadjar could be looking over his shoulder pretty quickly in that Red Bull system halfway through the season if he's not up to scratch. So yeah, just a gut feel, but we'll see. In P16, we have Lance Stroll, and some of you no doubt will be thinking he should be lower or he should be higher, but I think this season for Lance Stroll, and particularly for Aston Martin, is just going to be a season similar to Stake F1. They'll just want it to be over and done with as quick as possible. I think their sole focus is going to be on next year. No doubt they'll be hoping that they can do what they did last year and get enough of an advantage that they can be comfortable in P5 and then put a lot of focus on the new regs. I think that's what that will be Aston Martin's focus, and I don't have faith that the car is going to be quick this year. There was nothing to showcase that they were quick last year. They were just quicker than the other midfield teams. They were nowhere near as quick as the top four, nowhere near Mercedes pace, and they were fortunate enough that the other teams were still playing catch up. Now, do Aston Martin still have enough of an advantage at the start of the season over their midfield competitors? Maybe. That kind of has been a pattern, but I don't know. I just think that we saw a lot last year where their pace really dropped off. Even Fernando Alonso was struggling. And we know how much he can extract pace out of an underperforming car. And for Lance Stroll, well, he's not Fernando Alonso. So that's why I think it's going to be another season where people were taking the unfortunate mick out of him, asking him to get out of the sport. And I don't think that will be the case. I don't think 2025 will be his last year, because 2026, it all resets again. And he has Adrian Newey at his disposal as well. So yeah, P16 for Lance Stroll. In P15, we have Alex Albon, and this may shock a few of you that he's so low. And I've already made a video on Albon and that this is a make or break year for him because he has Carlos Sainz alongside him. We know Alex Albon, of course, had really no competitors as his teammates, Latifi and Logan Sargent, and comfortably beat them. And, well, really, Williams as a team was at his disposal. But then Colapinto came in and kind of provided a little bit of a shock to the system, which Albon did rise to. Colapinto did well, but Albon did respond with a couple of decent performances when Colapinto arrived. But it showed that Albon was being made, particularly to look good, because of his poor teammates. And, well, this year, I've just got a feeling that he may buckle under the pressure. I really do think Carlos Sainz is going to prove to everyone, as we'll get to further up in these predictions, will prove to everyone that he is definitely a man to still want in your team at the top. I think, of course, he's very unfortunate to be ousted by Lewis Hamilton, but Albon really needs to dig deep this season. There's no two words about it. I think Williams as a car will be better than last year. I think it will be better, of course, than Stake F1 and the Alpha Tauri V-Cub. See, I've already called them Alpha Tauri. But I think in Albon's hands, he'll have some good performances, but he needs to cut out the crashes that he had last year. He was very crashy, and, well, if he's got Carlos Sainz alongside him, while he crashes and Sainz is consistently finishing in the points, which I think he has the ability to do, even in a Williams, well, yeah, that's really going to build the pressure on Alex's shoulders, and I think we could see him falter this year. I really hope I'm wrong, because I really like Alex Albon, but I just have this feeling that that's how 2025 is going to play out for him. In P14 is Yuki Tsunoda, and I've spoken about Yuki numerous times, and I think this is going to be another season where he has many highs but has just as many lows. That's the problem for Yuki. And, well, this season, we know that it's his last in the Red Bull system. I do hope that he goes out on a high. At least if he has as many lows as he does highs, I hope he ends the season on a high and gets all those lows out of the way at the start of the season, so that recency bias, which is a thing, especially in F1, will make public perception and up and down the paddock look at Yuki for an option in 2026. But yeah, I think he's going to be hampered once again by that V-carb car. I think he'll score points. I think he'll be there or thereabouts for most races. But as I mentioned, doing a breakdown of his career in F1, unfortunately for Yuki, he has just as many lows as he does highs. And those lows, which I think are valid on-track reasons for why he's been overlooked for the Red Bull seat compared to Lawson, he needs to cut out. And I'm just not convinced that this season's going to be the season he does it. He's about to enter his 5th season in F1, and it just hasn't been enough progression. Now, last year there was progression, but not enough. Now, I could be completely wrong, of course. And if he does start off well, and Lawson starts off very poorly, then there could be a mid-season switch. You never know. But I still think politics gets in the way, as we know, with that Honda partnership coming to an end. But yeah, for Yuki, I think it's going to be a very up and down season again. Who knows? Hopefully he proves us wrong, and he may even be further up on the standings than what I'm predicting. In P13 is Fernando Alonso. Yes, I know your jaw just dropped to the floor, but I think Fernando Alonso is going to have a torrid year by his standards. And as we've mentioned with Stroll already, I just got a suspicion that the Aston Martin is not going to be good this year. And well, Alonso, is he going to finally, as he does at every single team he's been at, is this the year where we start to see those bridges burned with the Aston Martin team? Because, well, he is renewed for 2026. He has 1 year there, so maybe he'll bite his tongue for 1 more year. But I think we're going to see more and more sassy comments from Fernando Alonso and more retirements. Fernando is definitely someone, if things aren't going his way, and he knows he's in for a very long season, he will just find an excuse and retire the car. I do think of course, his innate talent to still be able to drag an underperforming car into point scoring positions, he'll do that. But I just think the Aston Martin is, not going to be a good car, especially with the others around him, and how close we saw the midfield last year, and how we're hoping and expecting for a closer season up and down the field. Yeah, I think that the drivers that finish ahead of him will be there because they have better cars and maybe slightly more fortune. In P12 and P11, I have gone for Esteban Ocon in P12 and Ollie Behrman in P11, the two Haas drivers. Yes, I think Ollie Behrman is going to be a rookie that beats his teammate. And, well, we know how relationships with Esteban Ocon and his teammates in the past have gone. I think he's tangled with every single teammate he has had. And, well, I think it's going to happen here again because Ollie Behrman is no slouch. In the 3 races that we saw of him last season as a super sub, of course, for Carlos Sainz in Saudi and the Ferrari, did a tremendous job there. Then we know that he beat Hülkenberg in Baku. Yes, Hülkenberg was unfortunate to collect some damage due to that kind of second to last lap incident with Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, and he would have finished a position ahead of Ollie Behrman, but still, Behrman out-qualified him and still stayed with Hülkenberg throughout the duration of the race. And Hülkenberg is no slouch, as we have just mentioned earlier on. So Behrman, I think, has done a lot to show us in those few races, and Interlagos was very unique circumstances for him. Once again, a super sub, and in those conditions, I don't think any rookie did well. I think Liam Lawson was the only rookie who kind of did well in that in those conditions. So yeah, big learning curve for him there, and I think Haas are going to be really good again this year. I made the mistake of predicting they'd be back down in the bottom 5, both drivers, but wow, they really were able to sort out their race pace, weren't they? That was their real stick in the mud, shall we say, in regards to the performance of the car. They were good in qualifying, as Hulkenberg showed, but then they fell back in 2023. In 24, they weren't doing that. They scored a number of points, and if it wasn't for Alpine's great fortune in the Interlagos race, Brazil, last year, then, well, they would have finished 6th in the constructors. Very comfortable. And this year as well, they've got that Toyota technical partnership beginning, which I think is going to be the first step towards Toyota making their way back into F1 full time. I do think, you heard it here first, but Haas will be purchased by Toyota if the rumours are to be believed that Toyota want to properly get back into F1 as a team. Yeah, I think the only way for them is up and forward, and I think they've got a good driver pairing to do that. Esteban Ocon, though, just a last thing on him. Why do I think Behrman will beat him? Well, I just think Ocon, again, pressure may get to him. Lots of people rate him very highly and some people don't. I'm kind of in the middle of the road. I think he's okay. I think he's just a good midfield driver. I don't think he's really a driver that showcased enough to be in a top team. But this year, with Haas, I mean, I don't see him similar to Alex Albon. I don't see him going anywhere else after this. I think this could be like his last opportunity in F1, really, because if he fails at Haas, where else is he going to go? He's not good enough to be a top team driver. Does another midfield team take him, or someone further down the pack? I mean, they're all looking more towards the youth now rather than the experienced drivers. And Ocon, I think that pressure, if Behrman starts beating him early on, I think that pressure could get to him. In the top 10 now, and P10, is Pierre Gasly, a driver who had a very strong end to the season last year in 2024, and I think he's going to pick up where he left off. I do rate Gasly quite highly. I think he's a very solid driver, and look, I think he's a driver that maybe deserves an opportunity in a top team again. The Red Bull seat came around too early for him, and he was quite young and arrogant, and yeah, he made some evidently some mistakes behind the scenes, and well, I think he went away and he's dug down hard and shown that he is definitely a driver to keep an eye out on, and in the last season definitely proved that. Now, will he finish higher than P10? I don't think so. I don't think there's any opportunity for that. I think the gulf between the top 4 teams and the rest of the field is still a little bit too large. And well, also Alpine, I don't think, like Stake F1, but in a different scenario, I don't think they're going to put a lot of money into that car this year. Now, they did win, of course, more money in the constructors by finishing 6th, primarily due to a great performance in Brazil, but I think they're looking to sell that team. They've already asset stripped the engine manufacturer side of things, heading to Mercedes engines and gearboxes from next year, and I just think them bringing in Colapinto as well, I think is them looking to make it as a selling point to investors that look what a great driver pairing we have got heading into a new set of regulations. And I think, like any sort of money they've got will go into the new regs for next year. I do think Alpine, Renault, I think they're looking to get out of the sport. I think they're just fed up with it now. That's just my sneaking suspicion. And you don't bring in Flavio Briatore to move the team forward. You bring him in as a shrewd businessman to asset strip the company and make it a sellable product. So that's just my opinion. But Gasly, we know he'll dig deep, and I think he'll get the best out of that car if it reaches minimum weight, which it failed to do at the start of last year. But yeah, a strong end to 2024, and I think they'll continue that, and I think there'll be some continued good battles in the midfield with Haar, so that's one definitely to keep an eye out on. And in P9 is Carlos Sainz. Yes, Carlos Sainz, I do think he's going to finish at the top of the midfield, because the rest of the drivers I'm yet to mention do consist of those top 4 teams, unsurprisingly. But Sainz, we know the circumstances of him being moved out of the way for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari, a decision that I think many feel was unjustified. I can see why it happens. End of the day, Lewis Hamilton is a lot more commercially viable than Carlos Sainz, and he is a 7-time world champion, while Sainz has improved year on year out. He is, yeah, that's not a CV that you can really compete with. But Sainz is a driver that I do believe should be in a top team still. It's a travesty that he isn't. Multiple race winner last year, multiple race winner over seasons with Ferrari. Wasn't really that far off the pace of Charles Leclerc. Yes, Charles Leclerc is a bit more consistent than Carlos Sainz and does have the better of him, but it's not like a gulf in performance that we've seen from teammates in the top teams in the past. So him moving to Williams, he already jumped into postseason testing and was quicker than Albon. Of course, so many variables there in regards to why he could be quicker, but for him to jump in a car that he's never been in before, and at the end of a single day of running laps to be quicker than Alex Albon's fastest qualifying time, a driver who is familiar with that team for 3 years, says a lot. And I've made a video on this already that Alex Albon should be worried about this, and I do think Sainz, even if it is a lot closer come the end of the season in the standings rather than Alex Albon in my predictions finishing down in 15th, I still do think Sainz will have the better of Alex Albon, and I think we're going to see a super impressive Sainz this year, proving that the likes of Red Bull and the likes of Mercedes should have made the opportunity to take him and give him a seat in their team, because I think he's going to comfortably finish in the top 10. The only way I don't see him finishing in the top 10 is if Williams have some severe reliability issues, but I think the talent of Sainz is really going to get more out of that car and showcase to Williams in particular what they could have potentially achieved if they had a better driver partnership for the last 3 years. So yeah, super excited to see what Carlos Sainz has up his sleeve for this year, and that inter-team battle with Alex Albon. So P9, Carlos Sainz. Now we get into the top 4 teams. So P8 for me is Kimi Antonelli. Yes, a rookie in the Mercedes seat, the very hotly anticipated and hyped up junior driver who I've had the pleasure of racing in the iRacing simulator. He actually crashed into me. Yes, he did crash into me. You can find a video on that. And he tested a move that he actually used to win his F2 feature race at the Hungaroring. So I take full credit for his win there. But Kimi Antonelli, we know he's got raw pace. This season is pretty much a season of it's a freebie season for him, really. You can go out there with no pressure at all. No one expects Mercedes to fight consistently for race wins. I think most of us just expect them to be, as they have done in the past few seasons, be quick at certain tracks. They say every single year that they've sorted out their issues from previous seasons, but I just don't trust Mercedes in regards to saying they've got a handle with these regulations. They clearly haven't compared to their competitors. And the thing is, for them, unfortunately, is that they're at least a year behind everyone in regards to development. They've been playing catch up this whole regulation set. And look, F1 doesn't stay still. This sport doesn't stay still. So while they may have made improvements and solved issues from last year, McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull are going to continue to improve their current cars. Of course, we are heading into 2026, and maybe there will be a close-up in performance relative to how it has been the past few seasons, because focus transfers to 2026 and developing the new regulation cars. But yeah, Antonelli, his first season, I think he will finish with a race win. I do actually think he'll get a race win at some point in this very long 24 race season, with of course the 6 sprint races. And yeah, I think PA is, I don't think he's going to get beaten. I don't think he's going to beat Lawson, because I think that Red Bull is still going to be quicker. But yeah, Antonelli in PA, and I think if he rounds off this year with a race win, or even single race win for him, I think will be a good positive, and showing that he's got that pace at least, and getting a handle on the tyres. But yeah, don't really expect too much from him. I'm dialing down the hype a bit, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see how he gets on. In P7 is George Russell. Yes, Russell, multiple race winner last year as well. I think Russell is going to finish P7 primarily because I don't have faith in Mercedes, as mentioned already with Kimi Antonelli. I don't have faith that they're going to provide a car for George Russell to consistently fight for race wins. That's pretty much it. I think I've already mentioned it. They've ballsed up this regulation set. We know how miffed Lewis Hamilton has been. And look, George Russell is at a point where he's going to get frustrated with the team. Of course, they're heading into a new set of regulations. That frustration may be reduced slightly, but I think he's been in Mercedes long enough now to know that he wants to win world titles. I always mentioned that him and Lewis Hamilton, there was a very difference in approach of mentality. Lewis Hamilton was coming from the top of dominating for the last 10 years, and what happened, of course, in 2021, a low moment for him, and then he's found himself not being able to compete for a championship the next 3 seasons. And then George Russell, on the other hand, has come from the bottom of the grid, driving around and fighting for last place every week, to then fighting for podiums and every now and then race wins. So for him, his outlook was always going to be so much more positive than Lewis Hamilton's in his approach. So, but I think that's going to start to wear thin, to be honest with you. So intrigued to see how Russell's frustration gets this season, if he's able to keep that very well-mannered PR face on. Of course, we know that he had a bit of a tangle with off the track with Max Verstappen in Qatar, and maybe we'll see that resurface this year, but I don't think we're going to see it resurface too often, to be honest with you, because I think Max is going to be fighting further up the grid more often than George Russell is. In P6, I have Liam Lawson. Yes, the second Red Bull driver, newly announced, promoted finally to a full-time seat, but maybe not a full-time seat that many expected or think he even deserves. I personally think he does deserve it. I said at minimum he deserves a full season. The fact of that he wasn't given a full season when Daniel Ricciardo was given 3/4 of a season last year was a bit of a travesty. And thankfully for him, he was able to showcase in the limited amount of time that he had in the past couple of seasons that he deserves a full seat. And I have high hopes for Liam Lawson. I really do. I think Liam Lawson is a super adaptable driver. If you're not familiar with this man's talents outside of F1, go and check it out. He's won a race in every single series that he has been involved in, and in multiple disciplines of motorsport as well. And you don't do that unless you're an adaptable driver. And the best F1 drivers in history, and maybe thinking I'm really hyping him up here, but the best F1 drivers in history, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher, these are drivers who are super adaptable and have always been able to drive difficult cars. Quick cars are difficult to drive, and that's where Sergio Perez fell down. Now, the bar for Liam Lawson is not that high compared to obviously who he is replacing, but Red Bull will still be expecting him to be up there fighting for top fives, for podiums, and potentially race wins as well in his first season. And Liam Lawson will be thinking the same as well. Now, I think he's going to beat Antonelli and Russell, because I think that Red Bull, while I don't believe it's going to be as quick as the Ferrari and McLarens, who I'm yet to mention, it is going to be quicker than the Mercedes more often than not throughout the majority of the season. And I think Liam Lawson is going to be able to handle that difficult Red Bull car a lot better than his predecessors. So yeah, intrigued to see how he gets on this year. I'm under no impression that he's going to beat Max Verstappen, but I think it will be closer than any other teammate he's had before. And also, Liam Lawson has the backing of Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. He does seem to be a bit of a favourite within the Red Bull camp. So, yeah, he may be afforded more time than others have been in the past. But it's Red Bull, who knows? But I'm looking forward to finally Lawson getting a full season and seeing what he can do. Now we're getting to the business end of the predictions, and I will say before I mention who is going to be in P5 that I do believe that any of the top 5 and those drivers I'm yet to mention, any of them have the ability to win a world championship if they have the machinery underneath them. And that's the key question for this year, because the teams, as we've already mentioned, have a lot of focus on 2026. And it really kind of depends on where these teams are going to apply that focus. How quickly do they write off this season? How long do they commit to developing this current car for this season? That's going to be really intriguing to watch and witness this year, and something to keep an eye out on. And, well, in P5, I have current 4-time world champion in a row, Max Verstappen. Yes, I do think this season, unfortunately for Max, one, I do think he's going to still end up a multiple race winner, because I'm under no illusion of how good a driver Max is and how much he can get out of an underperforming car. Just got a sneaking suspicion that we may be seeing a similar scenario to what happened with Sebastian Vettel. He won 4 world championships in a row, and then there was a change of regulations, while of course we still have this season before that regulation change. Seb stayed at Red Bull and it didn't work out for him, and then he went to Ferrari. He had opportunities to win championships there and wasn't able to do it. I'm not saying Max wouldn't be able to win championships at another team if provided the machinery, but I've just got a feeling the end of his Red Bull career is on the horizon, and I do think he'll move on, especially if they're not able to provide him a car that can win a world championship, because that's what Max is here to do. He's here to win world championships. He has no interest in fighting it out for 4th place, 5th place. That's not what he's here to do. He's a winner, and that's what he wants. So yeah, I don't think the talent of Max is going to be the reason why he finishes in 5th, but I just don't see Red Bull potentially having a car, especially with the flexi wing technical change which has recently been announced, which Red Bull are not too happy about and have openly said that it is going to affect them, but comes into effect 8 races into the season. That could have quite a negative impact on their car, which could already be off the pace of the Ferrari and McLaren. So yeah, really intrigued to see how it gets on. But yeah, we know if he does have a car that can win races on the regular, Max is going to be fighting out for a world championship. And yeah, this top 5 can be in any order, really. I don't think any of their talents can be really kind of questioned. Some of them, of course, haven't won world championships yet, or 3 of them haven't. 2 of them have, of course, Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, yet to mention. But they're all race winners. They can all win multiple races, and I think they can all win world championships if they have the machinery. So yeah, let's see. Not long to wait and find out. In P4, I have Oscar Piastri. Yes, and this may surprise a few of you that he is above Max Verstappen, but not going to sound like a broken record, but I think McLaren are going to have the strongest car this year, out the blocks in particular. And I think Oscar Piastri, who has shown an improvement in the 2 seasons that he has been in F1 now. His first season, of course, he showed great potential, but suffered with his tyre management in particular. Didn't really have the race pace of Lando Norris. And then last season, he had a great middle spell of the year, a season of 3 thirds, shall we say. The first third for Oscar Piastri wasn't great, really, which is why he was so far behind Lando Norris, come where he then had that great run of form in the middle of the season, picking up 2 race wins and multiple podiums. But then the latter stage of the season, that last third, just once again, he fell off. He wasn't able to continue that performance that he had in the middle of the season. And if he wants to win a world championship, he needs to ensure that he does it consistently over a 24 race season, which arguably Lando for the most part was able to do last year, but we have seen a pattern of Piastri improving year on year, and I think that's going to be the case again this time around. And I think it's going to be very close between him and the top 3. We're all hoping for a very close championship this year, and I hope Oscar Piastri is going to be able to do that. But I think he's just going to fall a bit short compared to the 3 that I've yet to mention. Maybe because of that inexperience. It will still be an improvement on last year and the year before that, but not enough for him to win a world championship, I think. In P3 is Lewis Hamilton. Now, this may shock a few of you because I am a big Lewis Hamilton fan, but I'm also thinking with my brain and not necessarily my heart. My heart would love nothing more than for Lewis Hamilton to have the dream of winning a Drivers' World Championship with his first season at Ferrari. However, I'm under no illusion that Lewis Hamilton isn't getting any younger. He is 40 years old now. And while I do think that he is going to be more driven than ever, and I do still think that he has the race pace as he showcased at Mercedes, there is no doubt still question marks over his qualifying pace. We cannot hide behind that, and you just have to acknowledge that as a Lewis Hamilton fan. And it is a potential worry, and I will potentially have my worries settled very quickly if I see Lewis Hamilton come out the blocks and qualify on the front row 3 times in a row. But while I'm making these predictions, I still have that slight concern. And with how close we are predicting that this championship will be this year, and even how we saw how close the performance was, particularly in qualifying over last season, a 10th here or there just makes the difference between you being on the front row to being down in 6th place, 7th place. And then gone are the times where you can make up 5-6 positions in a race anymore. Lewis would make up positions in the race due to his, of course, great race pace and his advantage on looking after tyres, but qualifying is an essential part of F1 now, and yeah, he really needs to sort that out. Also, the reason why he is down in 3rd and not ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc, who we're yet to mention, is because I also think it is a tall order to come in and beat Charles Leclerc, who has been at Ferrari for years now. Lewis has spent the last decade at Mercedes, a team that he's very comfortable with, based in the UK, and he's uprooted himself and moved to Italy. And it's a whole new language, it's a whole new environment for him. Of course, Fred Vasseur and his relationship with Charles Leclerc will make things easier for him, but Charles Leclerc is still going to want to beat him, and I think Charles will. I still think it will be really close between the two of them, but I just think this season Lewis will win multiple races, but he'll fall short of the Drivers' Championship. I hope I'm wrong, because nothing would make me more happier than him winning a Drivers' World Championship. But I'm using logic here for him finishing down in 3rd place. And I don't think 3rd place for him would be a poor season by any means. I think it would just be a stepping stone to an even stronger follow-up season, depending on the car, of course, in 2026. So yeah, that's my logic. If he goes in and he truly beats Leclerc, who is a super consistent driver, Leclerc gets a lot of credit for his single lap pace, rightfully so, but Leclerc's consistency is super scary. Super scary. He had a little wobble due to some poor Ferrari decisions last year, but he didn't finish outside the top 5. But other than like 3 races where Ferrari made mistakes, putting him out on dry tyres when he should have been on wets, as an example. So yeah, I'm expecting Charles Leclerc to be super strong again this year. And if Lewis does beat Charles this season, I mean, that is super impressive and something that shouldn't be overlooked. Now on to who will be my Drivers' World Champion. There's only 2 names remaining, Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris. And well, in P2 is Charles Leclerc. Yes, I think Lando Norris will be Drivers' World Champion, who we'll get onto shortly and why I think why. But for Charles Leclerc, P2, I think it's going to be super close. I really, really do. I think, and I'm hoping, maybe it's my heart more so than my brain. I'm still have a little bit of reservation that when we get our hopes up in F1, we're let down. But we're all hoping that it's a multiple driver, multiple team world championship battle this year. And heading into the latter stages of the season where there's 3 or 4 drivers that can win the championship. That would be absolutely unreal. But more often than not, it doesn't happen. But I'd love to see a Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc Drivers' World Championship this year battle. And yeah, I think Charles Leclerc is just going to fall short of Lando Norris. Charles is going to be super consistent again this year, but I still do have slight reservations over Ferrari's performance over a whole year. Now, as I've previously mentioned, Charles Leclerc is super consistent, and I think that he still has a little bit of an overdrive in him in regards to crashing the car. He did that in Baku, didn't he, in practice, but he recovered, thankfully, and it was only in practice. But Charles Leclerc, I think, similarly to Lando, has matured over the past few seasons, and I think he's ready to fight again for a world championship. Of course, it was short-lived against Max Verstappen, but truly for a whole season. But Ferrari, I think, are going to let him down, just with some poor strategy decisions, maybe some poor pit stops. I still don't think while they've improved under Fred Vasseur, I don't think that they are still that well-oiled operational machine, and I think that will also affect Lewis Hamilton as well. And I think the drivers are going to get the most out of a good Ferrari this year. How good it will be, who knows, but I think lots of us have, with how they ended 2024, lots of a positive feeling around the team and the car that they'll build. But yeah, I think Charles may just be let down by the team, which is why he will fall short of that Drivers' Championship to Lando Norris. And Lando Norris, I think, is going to prove a lot of the doubters wrong this season. Now, I think Lando got a fair amount of criticism last year, which I think was valid. However, I do also think he got an overwhelmingly amount of unfair criticism. Too much so, really. And I think when I look back at Lando Norris's season last year, I think overall he'll look back and he would have assessed over the winter break that actually it was a very positive season for him. He started the year without ever winning an F1 race, and he ended the season with 4. Now, yes, in hindsight, he should have won a considerable more amount than that. But considering he had never won a race at the start of the season, or when he started that season, and let alone fight for a Drivers' World Championship, I think he would have learnt so much. And I think the one thing that gets overlooked with Lando last year is that he consistently put himself in positions to win races and to fight Max Verstappen. He consistently found himself on the front row. Yes, of course, his starts were slow and there were technical issues with McLaren, but of course some of them were attributed to him. Yes, there were, of course, overtaking decisions or in the heat of the moment with Max Verstappen where he wasn't able to secure the positions, but he consistently put himself in positions to win races on the front row. And look, the only way you learn is by making mistakes, and I think Lando would have done so much growing last year and over the winter break, and I think he's going to absolutely not necessarily dominate, but I think he's going to just show again that he's going to be super consistent this year, and he's just not going to go away. And McLaren in particular, I think, are going to make a cracking car again, and they were last year not the quickest car. Now, don't get me wrong, they were quick, but they were consistently quick across the season. They weren't the outright quickest car. They turned up most race weekends being one of the fastest cars. It was them versus either Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes, depending on the track and track conditions. But they were the best all-round car across the season. And yes, they should have converted more race wins. But hopefully McLaren have also learned from the fact that they are now constructors winners, and they can win a Drivers' World Championship and have that belief in Lando Norris. And I think Lando is going to comfortably get ahead of Oscar Piastri, put his foot down and state that he is the number one driver and deserves to be prioritised, as any driver should in their team. Because if you have 2 number one drivers and you try and treat them as such throughout the duration of the season, as we may find out this year, and it may suit Max Verstappen, who I have put down in 5th, but the positive for him is that I think he will probably have easily the best of Liam Lawson, but where we've got Piastri and Norris and we've got Hamilton and Leclerc, they may trip over each other where those teams want to treat them as both number one drivers. Whereas Red Bull have a clear number one. Will that allow Max to come through and fight for the World Championship rather than him down in fifth, as I'm predicting? So many different scenarios that could happen this season. But I think Lando will stamp his authority as number one driver again this year over Piastri. And yeah, I think he's going to win that Drivers' World Championship. I really do. I think he's going to do similar to what Lewis Hamilton did. Of course, Lewis was a lot stronger in his first rookie year. But yeah, after people writing Lewis off, even after a great rookie year in 2007, he came back in 2008 and won it. And look where he is now. Not to say Lando will do that, but I really do think that he'll step up this year and win multiple times, and I think he'll improve his wheel-to-wheel battling as well. So yeah, I think he'll look back, and people will look back on last season 2024 as a real defining moment in Lando Norris's career. So yeah, those are my predictions, guys, for this season. Probably going to be absolutely wildly wrong, but that's the fun of making predictions. I've tried to base them around logic, but look, it is going to be such an unknown year. We have a lot of hype with what we saw in 2024, but with those 2026 regs fast approaching, and with the teams now able this season to start developing the aero packages and the chassis and so forth of those cars, how long will it be before the development direction is sent that way and moved from 2025? How many teams are going to write off this year? How many of them have already written it off, to be honest with you? Williams have put a lot of focus and they've been very outspoken in how much they are focusing on 2026. And yeah, I hope this season doesn't become a damp squib because of that. Potentially could. But yes, here's hoping, fingers crossed. But regardless of all my predictions, we are in for a very long, thought-out World Championship between multiple drivers. That's all I want. But let me know your predictions in the comments below. Do you agree with my logic, or do you completely disagree? No doubt there's going to be a lot of disagreements. That's the fun in it. So yes, see you for them. We'll see you for the start of the 2025 season. Bye.